Hello, guys, and welcome to the Rebound Talks podcast, where we find the best tools, tips, and techniques needed to overcome any adversity. Today, we're going to be speaking to the very famous, very beautiful, and very interesting Michelle Poler. As the founder of Hello Fears, Michelle Poler has created a social movement empowering millions to step outside their comfort zone and tap into their full potential. Not only does she have a huge social following, but she's also the creator of the project 100 Days Without Fear, where she faced 100 fears in 100 days. She's also a public speaker, author of the book Hello Fears, Crush Your Comfort Zone and Become Who You're Meant to Be. Stay tuned to find out why your comfort zone and why your fears might be holding you back, how to become a braver person, crush that fear of failure, and seek out what you want to do, not what culture tells you to do. Hope you enjoy. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for coming on. And I'm very excited because you're the first Venezuelan that we have on the show. And you're an inspiration for me because you've made it in the US and you've done some incredible things. So thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Wow, I'm the first Venezuelan. That's an honor. Cool.
Thank you. And I want to start with, when did you realize that not facing your fears was holding you back, was a problem for you? And why did you embark on this 100-day, 100 fears challenge?
I think it was when I first moved to New York and I wanted to continue living my life inside of my comfort zone, but in such challenging city. There are so many things going on. It's really hard to control. And I continually tried to stay in my comfort zone, and I was not really able to enjoy everything that the city had to offer. And so I wanted to start living more. And I started making new friends because the reason why I moved to New York in the first place was to do a master's. And so I started meeting new people, new friends, and they were not that happy with me being always inside of my comfort zone. So my friends started challenging me, and I really liked them. So I was like, I want to be their friends. I want them to consider me and grow this friendship, and I even admire them. So I want them to admire me back. And it's sad that because I'm so afraid of everything, they're disappointed in me. And I never experienced that before. Like before in my life, when I went to college, I had a lot of friends, but they were okay with me being very fearful. They felt the need to protect me at all times. So they always, like, for example, if I had to travel, they would go with me to the airport and help me with my baggage and everything. And they were like, oh, poor Michelle, she needs help. She can't take care of herself. And then these friends in New York, they're like, why don't you do this on your own? And why wouldn't you join us for drinks at night? And I'm like, no, because it's late and I should go home and it's dangerous. And they started to challenge me to do things. And little by little, I started to do the challenges that they were like proposing. And actually I started to enjoy them to the point that I was like, this is not that bad. And then I was like, I definitely want to become a better version of myself. I think this is the right time to do it. This is a perfect city to explore. And I had the support of my husband as well. And he wanted me to become a better version of myself. He wanted me to become a braver person, mostly if we were considering having kids at that time. And so everything like came together and I was like, yeah, I want to start facing my fears, all of them. So I did the project 100 Days Without Fear.
And the project is incredible. I've seen the videos, very funny. But where do you think that the root cause of all these fears was? Where did this longing to stay in your comfort zone come from?
I think it's from, it's not one thing. Like I've been analyzing my past a lot, and there are a few things contributing to my fears. I think the first one would be the fact that I am the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. So my grandparents went through the Holocaust. They were in concentration camps. They lost it all. They lost their family in the camps, like killed by the Nazis and everything. And they were able to survive, but their fears never went away. They were carried from generation to generation. So they moved to Venezuela from Europe. and they started over in a new country, new language, new culture and everything, but with so many fears, knowing that the worst can happen because it happened to them. And so they had my mom when they were already in Venezuela, and they raised her with so many fears and traumas. And that is the same way that she raised me, because she didn't know any better. And then I think that's a huge part of where my fears come from. I learned from about the Holocaust very early in life. I knew that that's a possibility. People can come and, take you away from your family, from your home. And that was so scary for me. Also being in Venezuela, that is a dangerous country, that constantly I had to be surrounded by adults. And every time it's like, Michelle, don't go there. No, you have to be with me, and grabbing my hand and pull up the window. It's too dangerous in here. And so I grew up realizing the world is a scary place. And I think it's also part of personality. I am a fearful person. And so if everything comes together, you can't help it but to have and experience fear. And also because my mom was also very fearful, she didn't have the tools to instill confidence in me. But I had my dad, who was very fearless. So he had no problem doing all the things that my mom was scared of doing, but he didn't know how to translate that to me in a way that I felt inspired to pursue my fears.
Through facing all these fears, you realize that there are actually 7 core fears, that some are universal while others are very personal to you or very personal to the specific person. Would you mind expanding on what these 7 core fears are?
Yeah. So what I did is I was facing one fear a day, right? So after facing, let's say 50 or 60 fears, I don't know how many, I started realizing that many of the fears felt kind of similar to each other. And I was like, when I went to get a Brazilian wax and when I went to get a piercing, I had the same fear, like the same feeling. And it's different from when I went to dance in front of, like in Times Square, like nobody's watching, or posing nude or whatever it is. So the feeling was different. So what I did is I started putting all of my fears into Post-its, separate Post-its. And I started to put them together, like based on the feeling that I would get based on those experiences. And I was like, this feels similar. And I ended up with 7 clusters of fears. Some had more Post-its than others, which made me realize that I was facing more fears related to one topic than another. And so I ended up choosing one word to describe each of the clusters. And so it was rejection, embarrassment, pain, danger, loneliness, lack of control, and I'm missing one, disgust, of course. Yeah, because disgust sounds weird. It's like, is that a fear? But I can tell you that I was afraid to eat an oyster, not because I would choke and die or get poisoned, but because it looks disgusting. I don't want to do it. And this was mostly about getting outside of the comfort zone. So if an oyster, it's outside of my comfort zone because it's disgusting, then yeah, disgust is one of my pillars. And so what I did is I realized which of these clusters was easier for me to face than others. And so, for example, facing the fear of embarrassment and rejection, it was not that hard for me, but fear of pain and lack of control and loneliness, huge for me. And so people can rank them according to their own, system, their own life. And so that's an exercise that I have in my book. So I explain the 7 fears, and then I leave some space for you to rank your fears according to your own life.
Yeah, and I highly recommend your book. It has a lot of exercise. I feel like it really guides you to becoming a more courageous person. Because as you say, fearless is not a thing unless you're like a sociopath or like a psychopath. We should strive to be brave. That even though we do have these fears, we should strive to face them and overcome them.
Exactly.
What do you do
it's
to
never
be...
about being, yeah.
What do you do to be more courageous?
So let me think. But yeah, what you were saying is so important. It's not a matter of aiming to be fearless, because that's what I thought at the beginning of the project. When I started facing my fears, I was like, my goal is to become fearless, to not have fears by the end of this project. And I learned that that's impossible. Life will continue bring new fears to your, to every experience. And the more experiences you have, and even the higher you climb, the more fears will appear. So you want to be successful. You think it will get easier when you're successful. It will get harder when you're successful. And so it just goes like that. You have to be willing to face your fears. And that's what I call being brave. Brave is when, despite the fear, you have the courage to take action, which I find that to be more inspiring and more empowering than being fearless. Because, for example, when I was going to go skydiving for one of my fears, I started researching on YouTube videos of people doing skydive. And I was not inspired. And what I realized is that people were eager to go skydiving, the ones that I was finding on YouTube. They're like, yeah, so excited. And then I can't relate to that because I'm not excited. I'm terrified. I needed to find someone that was as afraid as I was in order for that person to be inspiring to me. And so that is what I realized that was inspiring so many people in my project, because I was not showing my brave face. I was showing my terrified face in every video. And then I would still go and face the fear and accomplish that. And so people could relate to the feeling of being afraid and still doing it. And that is exactly what inspired millions of people to go after their fears after they watch my videos, which is so cool. And so to answer your question, how can you be more brave? I think that it's a matter of really wanting what's on the other side of fear. If you're comfortable with what you have, you will never face your fears. But if you want more out of life, if you don't want to conform, like you're not okay with what you have right now, you want a better salary, then you have to go face your fear of asking for a raise. It is scary to ask for a raise, right? But you want that salary. Come on. A lot of people don't ask for it and they wait for things to happen to them instead of them happening to things. And then they stay where they are for years and years. And the problem is that we underestimate time. And we always think, it's fine, we can do it next year. But that's just our fear talking. It's our comfort speaking. And so it's really important that we want this more than we fear it. That is the key. I wanted to be someone more than I was afraid of doing my fears. And I was like, I'm committing to this project because it has the potential to change my life and the life of many people. And now, for example, I wrote a book, right? And so it was terrifying to say yes to writing a book. It's easier to not write the book, but I wanted to be an author more than I fear it. And so it's a matter of that and making a commitment to yourself. I personally made a commitment where I promised myself that I was not going to allow my fears to get in the way of my success, of my dreams, of my goals, my passion. And so every time that I want to do something, like pursue something that I really want to do, and then I feel the fear, and I understand that fear is the only thing that is keeping me, I have to do everything in my power to go beyond that fear and actually pursue that thing. I cannot allow fear to stop me. That's my one commitment to myself.
Yeah, we should never allow fear to stop us. But culture, as you mentioned in your book, has a big role of shaping what they deem to be acceptable. And as you did prior to facing your fears, there's a lot of people that have boxes that they need to check. Oh yeah, I need to go to university. I need to graduate. I need to get married early, have kids early, get a mortgage. And that's what culture wants them to do. But you don't necessarily want to do that yourself. So how can people go against, or not go against, see what they actually want to do as opposed to what culture wants them to do?
Yeah, that is an amazing question. It's so important, and it all starts with honesty. How honest are you being with yourself, and who are you trying to impress? So if you get really honest with yourself and you realize that you want that job because you want to impress your professors at school, you want to impress your parents, then that's not the right job for you. It's the right job for them. But you will be miserable. And sadly, it's you who will be going to that job. And so it happens to everybody. It happened to me when I graduated, but it makes sense because I graduated from college and I didn't know exactly what I wanted. And it's important that we try things, even though if we fail and we realize that was not the right thing, it's really important we try the things that we don't like also. So we learn. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to me, right? I graduated and I pursued a job in advertising. That was my career. And I found a really good job at one of the best agencies in Miami, Young and Rubicam. It's like huge. Everybody knows it. And I was so happy, not because of me. I was so happy to give the news to my professors at school. I knew that they were going to be so proud and that they were going to put my name in one of those emails that they send out to all the students, right? Saying, look where our students landed. Michelle Poller landed a job at Young and Rubicam. And I wanted that so much. And then I realized it was not for me. It was to please them. It was to please the school, to please my parents. But I had to go through that. I remember the first day in my job, I cried all day long. I was miserable. And it only took me hours to realize that I was not in the right place. But of course, I didn't know what the other options were at that point. I had to continue working and experiencing life in order to figure it out. And so, for example, in my case, I started doing freelance. And I started to enjoy more my freelance than my job. And then I realized that it's because in my freelance, I'm doing a lot of branding, which is hard to define the difference between branding and advertising. But branding is when a brand is brand new and you get to create it. You get to choose a logo, a design for it, the whole personality of the brand. And I was doing that for small clients. And in the agency, I had huge clients like Wendy's and Hershey's and Revlon that already had established guidelines. And I don't like guidelines. I'm a very, I like to do things my way. And when you give me guidelines, I'm like, I want to break all these guidelines and start over. That is branding. When you do branding, you can, decide the guidelines yourself. And so that's when I realized I had to study branding. So I moved to New York to do a master's in branding, but I had to go through the whole experience. But the important thing is that when I decided to move to New York, I was already married and I had 3 years married with my husband, and people were expecting us to start having children at that point. And so it was hard to make the decision to, instead of having children right now, we're going to move to New York, put all of our money into a master program instead of a mortgage, and pursue that dream that feels true to me, that I'm not doing that because I want to impress anybody. I want to do it for myself. And so when you start doing things for yourself, that's when you are in the right path. And that's when you are more likely to achieve success. But the important thing is that this success that you will achieve is your kind of success. Because you can achieve success like I did in advertising. Oh, I found an amazing job, good salary, whatever it is. But it was not my kind of success. It was not making me happy. So it all starts with honesty with yourself.
I completely agree. And it's sometimes hard to find out what you truly want to do. And it all comes to, I feel, being vulnerable enough and diving deeply into yourself to realize what your real passion is.
Yeah. And you have to explore a lot and ask yourself a lot of questions and question everything. Don't just give things for granted. Don't assume that because this is what you have, this is all there is. And also don't assume that because other people around you, like your friends, are happy with what they have, or at least look happy with what they have, it's that you have to settle for that. Because that's what happened to me. I was like, why is nobody questioning what's happening here? We're all in our 20s, early 20s, and they're all starting to have kids and they have mortgages. And I'm like, this is a time to be uncomfortable. This is a time to hustle. But it seems like I'm the only one complaining about being too comfortable with my life. And that's okay. You don't have to feel weird about it. I think that there's a lot of power in there.
So talking about comfort, what would you say to someone that values comfort over bravery or courage?
Well, I hope you're happy now. And I don't know why you're listening to this interview. This is not for you. I am talking to the people who are not comfortable with comfort. People who are not here to settle. People who always want more out of life, who want to become someone. If you just want comfort in life, then that's easy. Check society's boxes, make everybody happy, make your parents happy. And that's the easier path. Definitely.
Not choosing this easier path requires a lot of bravery. But before, when I thought about bravery, I thought about Rambo having a six pack and like killing tigers with your hands, stuff like that. But you led me to realize that bravery was actually putting yourself, being vulnerable enough to express who you really are.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to become your authentic self. And I think that is the like a goal we all should have. How can we be more ourselves and accept ourselves in a way that we feel welcome just the way we are, and we feel we belong as we are, so we don't need to fit in, so we don't need to adapt, right, or change who we are, or feel like judge ourselves because some like more people are judging us or whatever. It's about us feeling comfortable with who we are. And talking about comfort, back to that question, there's a huge difference between these two concepts that I love, and it's seeking comfort and earning comfort. So seeking comfort is the person who just wants to, lay on a couch and, have everything figured out and easy and don't have to work too hard. That's seeking comfort. But then earning comfort, I think that's the concept that I want to pursue. And it's when every time you want a little bit more, you want to challenge yourself, you want to become a better version of yourself. And when you do, you achieve certain comfort. And then you're able to enjoy that without guilt. Because that is what was happening to me. I was seeking comfort at the beginning. I wanted the stable job, partner, an apartment, a car. And then I felt guilty having all those things without really working really hard for them. But now I have those same things because I just moved back from New York, right? A few months ago. I'm back in Miami. I have a bigger apartment, nicer things. But I feel like I earned all of these things because I worked so hard. And finally, I get to enjoy them with a different perspective.
You've earned them. And as you said before, success comes with a lot of responsibilities. And now you also have to put yourself in situations where you might be afraid. Every time you go up the ladder or whatever your success means, you have to do things that make you even more uncomfortable. So yes, now you might be living in a comfortable apartment, bigger, but you still inspire hundreds of thousands of people on Instagram. You're still putting yourself out there and doing things outside your comfort zone.
Every day. I think that the day I stop pushing myself, the day I stop challenging myself and I decide to settle, then that's the day everything is over. Because how can I inspire people if I'm not pursuing my own advice? For example, we're now in the middle of the quarantine and I had to put a lot of my courage into this huge change that happened. My career personally changed 100%. I went from traveling every 2 days and speaking, at huge events in front of thousands of people to suddenly being home, not having all of those events, not being able to travel. And so I had to reinvent myself. And I realized that whatever I do has an impact on the people that are following me. It's not about me. It's not about my business. It's about what I do can inspire a lot of people, like thousands of people, to also step it up. And so I had a bigger responsibility now. And I love the concept of thought leaders, right? And action leaders. So thought leaders is easy. You can stay and say amazing quotes that people can say, ooh, that's so interesting. That's right. We should all do that. And then action leaders are those who are actually taking action and inspiring people with their actions. And I didn't realize that. I was just putting myself out there and reinventing myself and hustling again from the beginning when the quarantine started. And people started telling me, you are inspiring me. The way that you are reinventing and changing your business and adapting to this new reality is inspiring me to do the same. And I was like, that's it. I think that it's more important to be action leaders always than to be just thought leaders.
Lead by example, definitely.
Lead by example, mostly when it's hard.
And being so much in the public eye, I imagine you get a lot of positive feedback, but you also have some trolls or some haters. How do you handle those? And more specifically, how do you handle your emotions whenever you read a negative comment?
Well, I have to tell you that at the beginning, when I was facing my fears every day and I was very new to this influencer world because I didn't ask for it, I was just facing my own fears. And suddenly this project went viral and I had thousands of people watching and following. And I started getting a lot of criticism because when you're in the spotlight, it's inevitable to have people disagree with you, or a lot of like jealousy, people that they want what you have and they express it with hate, and it's inevitable, right? That's the world that we live in, sadly. And we had to deal with that. So at the beginning, I have to say that it was so weird to have strangers commenting on my life about things they don't know. And they were like saying like, it would be so nice to not have a job, have enough money and enough time to do all of those fears, while I was actually working full time in advertising that is like really committed, this job. And I was doing a master's in branding at night. And so my schedule was completely packed, and still I was facing fears during lunch breaks or at night or very early in the morning. And of course, during the weekends. And I was not only recording, like facing a fear, but I was recording it, putting on YouTube, creating videos, creating a whole brand around it. I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a day at one point, mostly when the project went viral. And I also added interviews on top of that. I had to quit my job in advertising, and I gave them 2 weeks, and it was the 2 most miserable weeks of my life. It was just too insane. And, reading that from a hater saying that, oh, I wish I had the time and the money. And no, we were going broke. We actually were thinking of stopping the project because we couldn't afford all of it. So it was around day like 39 or 40 that we had this conversation, me and my husband, and we're like, we should maybe get to day 50 and then continue the next 50 fears next year when we save more money, because we're living in New York. It's super expensive, doing a master's that I have to pay. And so we were about to give up on the project, and then the project went viral. And after going viral, companies wanted to sponsor all of the fears. So they were like, please come do skydiving with us. We won't charge you. And so we were like, yes. And we did everything for free. So we didn't have to pay any experience again, which was great. And so, yeah, it's hard to see haters hating, but I realized that haters are not a reason to stop whatever you're doing or pursuing. And they can't define you either, because they don't know you. So you have to understand that difference and like create that distance with them and what you're doing. And personally, I like to use criticism as fuel, either as a way to improve what I'm doing and do a better job, or as a way to double down on myself and how I've been doing things because I believe in myself. And so anyway, and like, it's all a matter of using those comments as fuel and say, oh, you think this is stupid, or you think I'm just trying to get attention, or you think, you do this on your day to day. Let me show you. And so after going viral, I started facing bigger fears. That's when I started doing like skydiving and holding a tarantula and quitting my job and posting nude for an art class and things like that. That I wanted to prove people that I'm not doing the things they do on their day to day like before. So haters were actually helpful at the end of the day.
It's great to use this haters as fuel, and they definitely have this fear of failure. Maybe they hate on people like you because they're afraid of starting, they're afraid of putting themselves out there. So they channel it with all these hate. And I also feel like these fears are very universal, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection. How do you personally handle those?
Failure and rejection?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was able to rewire my brain to understand that the only time that you fail is the time that you fail to try. When you decide not to try something because you're afraid to fail, you're already failing yourself. Like right off the bat, you're already failing just because you decided not to try it. So for me, I don't perceive failure when I do something and I make a mistake or it doesn't go the way I want to, or I don't achieve the results that I had in mind. I just see that as learning. So whenever I try to do something and it doesn't work out, at least I now know what I didn't know before, right? Before I was clueless before trying anything, but now I tried, didn't work out. Okay, now I have to come up with a new strategy and make it work out. So it's not over until you decide that it's over. that's how I see my journey. I wanted to become a speaker, right? I quit my job in advertising. I delivered a TEDx as my 100th year, and I wanted to become a speaker. And it was hard. It was so hard at the beginning. And I thought it was going to be easier than it actually was. But if it wasn't because I kept trying and kept changing my strategy again and again, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? Charging thousands of dollars to speak in front of audiences of 20,000 people. And I have to give myself a lot of credit for that, because I never say, oh, I'm a failure, I didn't get that. No, I made a mistake. I did a wrong strategy, because I've never done this before. I have to be very patient with myself and forgiving also, and continue trying. And the most important thing, believe in yourself. And I have this quote in the book that I love, and it says, when you believe in yourself so much, you make others believe in you as well. So I may not have the resume, the record, the proven career as a speaker, but I believe in myself so much that I make others believe in me, and even invest in me the way that I see myself. That's important.
That's amazing. I also want to touch on your fear-facing process that you explain, and maybe how people could tackle each stage.
All right. So yes. What I started seeing a lot of patterns as I was facing my fears daily. And one of them is that this pattern is the circle, the stages that you go through when you face your fears. And it all starts with the discovery stage. So it's when you realize for the first time that you're afraid of something. Like, for example, if a friend tells you, hey, let's go, let's volunteer in Africa for a month, and you're like, wait, what? Let me think about it. So if your reaction is not immediately, yes, let's do it, then it means that is something that is outside of your comfort zone. You're like, let me think about that one before. It's not like they're telling you, let's go, get ice cream, when they're doing, let's go get, you're like, sure, let's go. But it's something like that, you're like, let me think about it. So that's the discovery stage. You're like, a fear is, or an uncomfortable situation is in front of you, and you're like realizing that it's somewhat uncomfortable. And then we go into the denial stage. Denial stage is when we're like, maybe it's not a good idea. And we start coming up with excuses why we should move on and focus on the next thing, because that's not a good idea. And you're just denying the fact that you are afraid to face that and to do that. And you're coming up with excuses why it's not the right time, or this is not for you, or whatever. And then some people come back to the idea, and they're like, you know what if I actually do that? And they start thinking of all the positive things that it can come from this experience. And they're like, well, maybe, yeah, let's actually do this, right? And then that's a determination stage, because you're like determined to face this fear, and you start planning. You're like, yeah, so we have to buy a ticket, we have to find the right date, we have to find the right company to do this, whatever. And so determination stage. And then from there, you would think that you go into action. Like, oh, okay, you're determined, then you do it. But no, there's a stage in between that I call the WTF am I doing stage. And that's the stage where you freak out and you ask yourself, what am I doing? What did I get myself into? This is insane. I was not thinking clearly. This is clearly a bad idea. And so you start convincing yourself that you're doing a mistake, and it's your fear, because you're about to do it. You're this close to going on the trip, or asking for a raise, or telling your parents that, I don't know, that you're gay, whatever it is that you're about to do. Your fear kicks in, and you're like, maybe I should wait longer. I should do more research on this. And so most of the people just stay in that stage, and they say bye to their fear. They leave, and they never come back. And they always have that in the back of their mind. And then years later, they wonder, what if I would have done that? What kind of experience would I have? How would my life be different today if I would have done that? And that leads to regret. And that's the majority of the people. But there is a small percentage of people that can get past that stage and say, you know what? I'm committing to do this. I want to become a better version of myself. I want a better life for myself. And if this uncomfortable moment will lead me to that, then I'm willing to go through the uncomfortable moment. And so, you have to, switch your mind around, convince yourself this is the right thing and do it. And then that lands you into the action stage. And then after the action stage, once you do it, you go into the celebratory stage. You celebrate and you feel proud of yourself for stepping up and doing facing your fears. And for me, that's when I started feeling proud of myself, when I started facing my fears. Because before that, I was accomplishing things like graduating from college with 4.0 GPA. I got married. I moved from one country from Venezuela to the United States. That's a huge accomplishment for some people. But I never really felt proud of myself because those are things that I felt I was supposed to do. They were not outside of my comfort zone. Those were things that I was like, yeah, I have to study and I want to study, whatever, right? Let's do it. So I never experienced that feeling of feeling proud of myself until I started overcoming my fears. And that's when I was like, okay, this is what feeling proud of myself feels like. And that's the last stage, the celebratory stage.
Wow, it's incredible how you started feeling proud of yourself after doing that.
Yeah, like even happy tears. I never had happy tears in my life because I was like, I accomplished this. Yeah, I accomplished that. I guess it was not that hard. But when you do something that is actually hard and you fight for it and you get it, like, yeah, that feeling changes everything. It makes you realize that you're stronger than you thought you were, that you were right by believing in yourself and betting that, on yourself, and that you can accomplish anything you want if you actually pursue it.
Beautiful. I've had amazing time speaking with you. Is there anything else you would like to say or anything you want to promote?
Yeah, definitely. So everything I talked about today, everything and way more is in my book, Hello Fears. It just came out only a few weeks ago. So I highly recommend that you are part of the Hello Fears movement by getting this book that is mostly a journey inward. It's not about me, this book, it's about you. And how can you start asking the right questions to yourself to uncover yourself, right? Understand who your authentic self is and then have the courage to bring that into the world. That is my goal, that everybody can become their most authentic selves, pursue their own passion, their purpose, and start fulfilling their own dreams, not everybody else's. And then if you speak Spanish, I want to invite you to my podcast, Desde el Avión. In every platform, it's very insightful conversations with me and my husband, and we talk about everything like entrepreneurship, how to make it as an international in a different country, and so many like topics. We talk about influencers and anything you can think of, and we do it from the plane. So every conversation you hear is actually we're on a plane traveling from one event to the other, but right now we're on the couch because it's coronavirus. And then follow me on Instagram. That's where I live most of the time. So find at Hello Fears on Instagram, and I can assure you that you'll be very inspired.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Rebound Talks podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. We're coming out with episodes every single Wednesday, so please subscribe, leave a like, and if you found anything useful, comment it down below. See you next week.